All right. I'm gonna try to get this dream out that I had. I grew up practicing magic. Uh, I went to like a school, and it wasn't like sorcery or wizardry or something like that. It was something kind of different. It was more like being a mage or something like where you practice a kind of magic that was kind of based on your imagination and creativity. So your spells are can be based off your ideas that you have at the moment. Like so you don't learn them or something, like you just kind of like create them. And so kids as they're learning this stuff like would challenge each other for duels, which was legit, um, was not frowned upon. And so it'd be simple things like uh, making the ground seem smooth when it wasn't, so you would trip. Or there's a thing that you could also do that like there could be things that are invisible to you, but very quickly, like you could blink or do like remove any barriers from my sight, kind of thing like that. Like there's all these are really easy, simple answers to most tricks. But you had to be aware that something's happening. You have to be aware that there's something that you can't see in order to make you think that maybe I need to give my eyes a little bit more power or something like that. And then as you got older, things got more complex, but people stopped challenging each other. So here's where how you decide who wins for the most part is the challenges are kind of to acknowledge kind of that you're wrong. Like typically it's like so your power doesn't run out until you doubt your I guess till you doubt yourself. And so as you're going through school, um, everything you learn, including like your will, like how strong-willed you are, start creates like a wand, or like a wand changes as you hold it and becomes like a part of you and represents um, your training, your skill, your will. And then at graduation, that wand becomes a part of your body and attaches to your bone. And most people put it in their uh, in their right arm. It doesn't matter where it goes; it's just like tradition. And after that, you after that, like you just practice with like with just your knowledge, like, and then it's just your creativity. So two people. So before that, like if I say like it's wrong to throw water balloons at people who didn't agree to play your water balloon game, right? My like it would like there would be a way to compare wills, like a balance of power would take place. Like the person that threw the water balloon would have to be so sure that that's the right way to behave. Everyone likes getting a surprised water balloon to the back of the head. At no point in time is it ever inappropriate, weddings or funerals, to throw a water balloon at somebody. Like they couldn't make themselves believe that, and so they would lose. They would basically lose the match of like whoever had the strongest will. But then, so here's the thing though. But as become an adult, people might actually come to believe that throwing a water balloon at a funeral might be the right way to be. Like that's so as it so challenges became really rare because basically they're opportunities to get really hurt or worse, because you think you're in the right. Like I had a Buddhist tell me once, like I said, but what about thievery? And there's like, well, there's people that want to be good thieves, like not a good person thieving, but they want to be good at stealing. Like they believe that that is a thing to aspire to. Like you can't say like, no, that's wrong. It's like, well, no, I'm good at it. Like it's like them telling you like, you're wrong for learning to be good at throwing a frisbee or something. Someone could think that's a waste of time throwing a frisbee, especially becoming the world's best. I met a guy actually that did the world's record frisbee toss for distance. a long time ago. So there was a guy that was working in he was a mage, and I was in a used store place, like a bunch of garages in a parking lot. And the guy that ran the place turned out he was a mage, and he was controlling his employees through fear and magic. Like he wasn't hurting them, but he was intimidating them. And I said, "Hey, man, that's an abuse of your power." And things got out of hand real fast. And he basically started with like a magic shoving match. It's like you just feel something hit you and push back. And in my mind, like that created like a buffer behind me of air and force that prevented me from slamming into anything. Like I basically it was like I had a giant cushion behind me. Um, and as I pushed him back and he did something similar, I put in a like I raised the level of the floor. So he goes to fall onto the ground, but he hits the ground like 6 feet before that. And like you just constantly like, and then he allowed himself to see, things that were hidden from him. And we ended up like, he ended up going like, since he was already up high, he ended up taking the high ground. And then I tried to get up on the high ground with him. And I forgot. Well, anyway, I'll let this just play out. So like those blue packing blankets that they say things about, like protects against damage and stuff on them. As I jumped up, he went to go throw the blanket at me, and I just went to go push it aside, but instead of just pushing it aside, it hit me like a sheet of water. And then it landed on the roof, and instead of being, a flat blanket on a roof, it was like a pool of water that I immediately like dove down into. And it was like a blanket, and it was like sticking to my skin. And there was this moment where I saw myself from outside of myself, and I just saw like this pure rage on my face. And I didn't think about it, but like I had like a couple years ago, I had that experience with almost drowning. I wonder if that had anything to do with that memory, but I basically turned the water back into a blanket, and it shredded around me. And he used the opportunity to like run for it. Maybe he got like, maybe he suddenly thought that like maybe intimidating his employees isn't like the moral high ground that this guy wants to defend himself upon. And I was able to like, I couldn't see where he went, but that was one of the reasons why you don't always have like your vision set to like show me things that are not apparent to me. Is it's like seeing radio waves and radiation and sound waves, and it's like all these things that like it looks like the world's going nuts when you do it. So you only do it to take a glance at things. And so I glanced at where he was and did this, thinking he might be invisible, but I could see a trajectory of how he had passed through the air. And I kind of did like a Google Maps thing. Like I envisioned his trajectory and where he would land, and I was on a doctor's office. And the doctor's office was a place that sold what do you call it, an apothecary shop. And so I started running, and it was like the scenes in Superman where he's running through, or any of the scenes where I guess someone's running at super speed. Like everything appears to be frozen, and you're just running through this place like the stream of light coming off your body, that kind of thing. And so I arrive at this office right after this guy arrives at the office, and we'll call him the evil guy, the guy that was intimidating his employees, had created a bird made out of a bit of that blanket and bits of the roof and metal. Like he basically burrowed through the roof to get to this doctor's office, the apothecary shop. And the apothecary, and he was demanding something. The apothecary said, "I'll give it to you, but you have to replace that all before you do. You have to replace all the damage you've done to my roof," which meant that that bird would be um, reduced back to the blanket it was right before he started. Like, because at that point in time, that bird looked pretty fearsome. So right as the bird just became the blanket, I snatched the blanket. I'm on the roof now, and it became mine. And then I went in through the door, and this guy gets a an item that looks like a Rubik's cube, made out of just wood, and it's something about hardness. And as I arrive into the apothecary shop, I said, "Do you?" And the guy knew what was happening. Completely knew what was happening. I didn't have to explain anything. I said, like, "Do you have anything to that would be a good counterpoint to what you just gave him?" And the guy's like, "Yes, I have. I have this." And he holds up like a globe of water. It's like a water droplet that's just floating in the air. He says, "But the cost is, you can see that there is protection on just my office, like a globe of magic." And so I did this, and I could see it. He's like, "Obviously that's not enough. I want you to expand it until it covers the whole building, including the roof." He didn't want any more magic birds clawing through the roof. And so I expanded the bubble for him, and he handed me the water droplet, which immediately went into my skin. I jumped out through the window. The guy even gestured the window was open. He even gestured like that's where the guy went. So I jumped out for the window, and the guy's actually waiting out there for me. And he starts scooping up everything around him, like the ground, like everything hard to him suddenly is weightless, and it was like ice cream or snow. Like he could whip up a car and throw it like a snowball, but it's the mass of a car. Or he'd scoop up like a massive amount of pavement and flick it through the air. And I was able to like just kind of like guide it through the air around me, but like that was like he just kept it up. And then he grabbed like this railing, like a traffic guardrail, and he swung it at me. And I did what I was doing with everything else. I just kind of pushed some force out, so as it would come, it would be pushed away. But what happened is I went to go push it, and it hit, and then the metal wrapped around, and then it started spinning around me, and soon I was getting wrapped up in this long sheet of metal. And I touched the top part as it was coming around my face, and it split into like ribbons, and the ribbons became snakes, and the snakes started launching themselves towards the guy. But meanwhile, the metal is still wrapping thicker and thicker around me. Like so, like my head is still exposed, but just the metal around my body gets thicker and thicker and thicker to where like you'd be hard pressed to figure out how that much steel is going to get off you. And so as these snakeheads, like a hydra, started attacking the guy. He was hitting it like karate chopping it, but there was like lightning and stuff like that. But as it hit the metal would warm up and melt and split apart and be two smaller heads. And he kept doing it till finally the heads were like just this massive tangle, and he basically just started, he was on the defensive, and there was just too many heads to attack individually. And suddenly he realized that now that he's on the defensive, I have an opportunity to work on my own problem, because I was still stuck. And it's a long dream, isn't it? So he crushed his fist together as hard as he can. So like evidently like he's just super, super hard and could create as much force as he wants. And so the pressure of him closing his hand started generating heat. And the heat quickly, like almost instantly became like that of a sun. And he held his hand up, and the metal just started melting. But then the metal started melting onto me, so soon, like I wasn't just wrapped anymore. It was like forming a metal egg on me. And I just kind of like leaned back and like kind of relaxed in a way. And I started to evaporate. And this made the guy like do it with his other hand. He's like, yes. And like, so like the heat just suddenly goes through the roof, And so suddenly like the metal melts, but like almost at the same time, I just become like steam, this ball of steam. And it's like it's foggy all around him. And he does this. He does the thing to check for if I'm invisible, and he sees what you normally see, like just like there's magic, there's sound, there's light, there's all these things. It's just like chaotic, but not me. Like but he knows that I'm still around. Like he could see that like even when he left earlier, he left like a trail of magic behind him. He could see that there's my trail of magic ends here, and it hasn't gone anywhere else, so I'm still here. And here's the thing about when someone does like when someone trots out their best stuff, like, so his best stuff wasn't the charm that he got from the guy. His best stuff was that towel thing that made me feel like I was drowning. And so a lot of people, when they pull out their best stuff, it's like they pull out their biggest fears, and they want other people, like, so why he's intimidating his employees, and why he might feel intimidated by the employees, or like from the minor to the major, like, we revenge upon the world what we are afraid of. And if we are twisted. And so he started to have trouble breathing. And so what I had become was basically like, I was gonna say amorphous. Like I became like fog. And as I started to condense on him, it made him harder for him to move, and he just kept up with the super hot hands, which just produced more heat, which just kept producing like more steam of me, and I just kept adhering to him till like he started to stiffen up, and then he started having trouble breathing. And once he started having trouble breathing, he tapped out. And here's how you tap out. The wand that you have in your arm or wherever you put it comes out of your body and into your hand, and that immediately, it's like an instantaneous magic reset that happens in your area. So now he's laying on the ground. He's now safe. He's got his wand over him. I'm standing over him, looking down, and he has this moment. This moment is like, you can now continue the fight, but you're now using your wand, which is the culmination of your knowledge that you learned and your will from graduating from school. Not the will that you just had that today, as a lifetime of being an adult and practicing all the whatever, like practicing who you are, or how you interact with the world, or how you control your emotions. Basically like you at 19. And you have that moment, like there's still something you could do, but at this point in time, if you fail at this point in time, you lose that wand, and that's it. As in, you're no longer a mage, you're a regular person, and there's no going back. But you could give up your wand. It means that you no longer fight. You keep your powers. I don't think that you're not necessarily recognized then, because like you could tell that someone is missing their wand. I think it drops you down, like there's like wizards and sorcerers and mages, and then like amateur spellcasters or something that move to small little towns, and they make a TV program with teenagers becoming witches, and you sell books. You now run a bookstore. So he gave it to me. He gave me his wand, and then ritually acknowledged that he was wrong. He doesn't have to believe it. It's just like he's like, I was wrong to abuse my employees, and now he's also weaker now as well. And then, creepily enough, I put his wand on my left arm, and it sunk down into my left arm, which evidently I think gives me two. I could be wrong twice. Oh, man. Crazy dream. Then, you call that, like, there's like when you watch, there's a movie, and then there's the credits, and then there's like a clip afterwards. Can't remember what they call that. A post scene or something like that. Postscript. But then I dreamed that I was taking Aquila for a walk, and it was evidently in a spaceship because there was strange curvature to the world, and everything looked futuristic, and it was really pretty. It was really beautiful. There was like water features everywhere, beautiful blue sky, and Kilo's being Aquila. He was just doing his business. He was like, like when we walked, he's like, "You're walking, you're doing your walk, I'm doing my walk." We're walking together, but like, um, I don't. It's hard to describe. He's just working. He's busy, and he gets to this flower bed and then just does a hooks right into this yard. And there's this half moment of like, I see people in the backyard, and I'm like, I'm sorry, I got to come get my dog. And the lady's like, "Oh, your dog's okay." And then Aquila takes a poop on her flowers. I'm like, "No, I'll pick up the poop." She's like, "No, I got plastic bags." I'm like, "No, I'll do it." I was like wearing gloves. I scooped up the dirt and like lifted up the poop like this. Um, and then she gave me a bag. I was just so uncomfortable. And she was really sweet, and she's like, and I kind of like, as I got into her backyard, like I could tell that she was a little bit better off than most people, because she had this amazing, like there was this weird curved ocean that came up to her backyard, and like you couldn't really see the ocean from the street, but from her yard you could look down into it. So it was like being on like a cliff in a way. And she's like, "Have you seen the view?" And Nikila's, running around her flowers and stuff like that. I'm like, your view is very beautiful." And I'm like, "Come on, Akila, let's go." And we just kept walking. That was it. Like the rest of the dream was just a walk. We walked around a neighborhood. So it was beautiful.